What happens when an unstoppable force meets a bioengineered nightmare? You may be asking yourself that question, but I have spent countless hours watching Invincible punch his way through challenges, but after diving into Resident Evil's catalog of horror, I started wondering, could Mark really make it that far? Today we're gonna find out if Invincible's raw power is enough to survive the entire Resident Evil universe. And before you guys comment, oh, obviously Invincible would survive, stop right there and wait for me to explain. Let's start off with Mr. X, or as I like to call him, Big Gray Guy with the hat. It's a working title. This absolute unit of a bioweapon makes Kool-Aid Man look like child's play. And while he may look like a nightmare for regular people, how does he stack up against Invincible, whose name is literally... Here's the thing about Mr. X. He's built like a brick house that decided to put on a trench coat and a hat one day. This guy will transform a million times and then shrug off missiles like they're nothing. He has a determination of that one 50-year-old mom trying to get her hand on that Stanley on Black Friday. But against Mark, things don't really get that interesting. Mark's gonna smack him up. Let me explain. Mark has thrown gigantic rocks from outer space. He's flown into outer space, fought giant aliens, maybe with the help of his dad and some, plot armor, but still. Mr. X's durability is impressive, I'll give him that. But in this universe, against Mark, it's like bringing a big knife to a nuclear war. It doesn't matter how big it is, you're gonna... Pause. You're dead. His whole unstoppable shtick turns into something much less. Being unstoppable doesn't really matter when your enemy can throw you into orbit. But let's not write off our fashionable friend yet. The thing that makes Mr. X so incredibly terrifying isn't his brute strength, it's his refusal to stay down. That's one thing that might worry Mark. The closest thing comparing to Mr. X that Mark has gone up against is the Mauler twins, and there's two of them. But the one thing that none of these enemies really have is trying to be creepy. We don't know, maybe that could tear at Mark more than we think. Imagine trying to sleep knowing that somewhere that this slowly thudding giant monster is coming towards you. But then again, Mark can probably just fly through a wall, grab him by the neck, and then freak out on him. Maybe call him a worm. Oh wait, that's him. The real question isn't whether if Mark could defeat Mr. X. Sorry, big guy. It's like bringing a paper umbrella to Hurricane Katrina. The question is how many buildings would get remodeled in the process. But if Mr. X gets lucky and speaks a few words, he might convince Mark to let him go. And honestly, that would probably happen watching the show. He makes me so... Why don't you just punch... You're so strong, just punch them all. Alright, enough yapping about that. Let's talk about William Birkin. Or as Umbrella wants to call him, the guy that really should have taken his vacation days. He looks stressed out. This guy looked at his life choices and decided, what if I injected myself with this needle and turned myself into a bioweapon? Birkin's whole thing is like a scary version of Pokemon. He keeps evolving the more you attack him into this disgusting, gross... whatever that is, yeah. He somehow manages to get worse skin problems every single time. Actually, it kind of makes sense. We are kind of just shooting him with acid. The good thing for Mark, William Birkin is pretty much like Mr. X's second brother. They're both very similar. They both mutate into something stronger each time, which makes it harder for him to fight. But all you have to do is just hope that Mr. X or William Birkin threaten Mark's family, and then they're both wiped off the face of the planet. Yeah, you just show him Debbie, show him that something went bad, and just blame it on him, and then he's saving everybody. He might destroy a few buildings in Chicago, but it's okay. But the thing that could really get Mark into a bad place is at the beginning when he first injects himself. If Invincible, Mark, caught him as he was injecting that into his arm, he'd probably be like, oh no, he's got this whole moral dilemma that... it just makes me so mad in every episode. He's got this whole thing about holding back. He'd be like, oh, but he used to be a person, and I can't do this to him. He's just misguided. And then he's probably got a hole punched in him now. But then he gets sent to the GDA and completely fixed up, and yeah, and then it doesn't matter. And then, oh, he's actually grown 10 times stronger, and he's actually destroyed a whole town. That's the thing with most of these monsters. It's just going to become a moral dilemma rather than a physical one, because we know that Mark's half Viltrumite. He can punch holes through basically everything. You just gotta give him the right reason to. Would Mark win? Probably. Depending on how things go and how much the therapy costs, this will be relatively easy for him. Now let's talk about Nemesis, the one that's very similar to the last two we talked about, but has something that's very different and special. This lovely gentleman's main thing is screaming stars, because that's all he cares about. Like he's auditioning for the most aggressive boy band, who only knows one word. But here's the thing about Nemesis that might actually give Mark a run for his money. He was specifically designed to take down these things. He's a more advanced version of Mr. X, William Birkin. He's meant to do this. But the thing is, Nemesis is looking for STARS members, not Mark, not Invincible. Mark could literally be walking behind Nemesis. If he knows he's just a monster, he's just walking there. Oh, he's about to kill Jill. Who cares? It's Jill. She'll be fine. He swings at Jill. He's distracted. Boom! Just punch a hole behind him. He might mutate, but then get him again. But then Mark might have that, like, superhero or, like, anime syndrome where he just makes sure he watches the full transformation and then he starts fighting. But if we don't use the obvious things, let's see what would make Nemesis give Mark a run for his money. First off, he's got that sweet tyrant durability. You know, he can take a punch. Kind of. This guy regenerates faster than your aunt posts memes on Facebook. Mark could throw him through a building. Or 10. But then Nemesis would just pop back up like, oh... thanks for the back adjustment, dude. But wait, there's more. Unlike Mr. X, he might be a bioweapon, but he's got some special things. Tentacles. Gross. He also has a rocket launcher and close combat capabilities. But Mark's usual strategy of just keep punching it until it's dead might not work with this one. If you remember in Resident Evil 3, the remake, Jill goes into Umbrella and then uses a railgun to finish him off. We don't know for sure if you can just replicate that by punching it into a million little pieces. Well, it probably will work, but still. Oh, and also, did I mention that these mutations are actually a little bit scarier than the other ones? Yeah, here's an example. Watch this. Yeah, so he can shape to his surroundings, which could actually be concerning. So if you get Mark stuck in the water and you have this reptilian version of Nemesis come at him, that might be a little bit more difficult. But more than likely, Invincible, he would more than likely destroy and win in this. We're just using some minor little possibilities that could give Nemesis the upper hand. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite 9-foot-tall vampire lady, Lady D. Or as the internet collectively likes to call her, Step on Me Mountain Lady. Gotta love Reddit. Standing at a modest 9'6", under normal circumstances, she's terrifying. But in this case, she's a lot less terrifying. That's creative, wasn't it? She's still pretty scary, though. Those claws could slice through steel. She's got the whole aristocratic predator down to science. But here's the thing. Mark regularly spars with people that could destroy entire planets. But the thing is he's got superhero syndrome, you know what I mean? He's so strong, but he never uses that strength. So while you might be yelling, he's way stronger than all these enemies, you gotta think about how he was in the show. One episode, he'd be bench pressing the equivalent of like a small planet. And then the next, he'd be getting beat by some little earthworms. I mean, they're not little, but you know what I mean? But let's not write her off yet, because if you do remember at the end of her section in Resident Evil Village, she turns into this crazy looking dragon thing. Not so easy anymore. She kind of looks like the monster at the end of Season 1 of Invincible. The one that Mark had help with his father on, and also, doesn't even count that he killed it. He killed it with a power line. He didn't do it. Someone should put the electricians on the Guardians of the Globe. But to be honest, we do have to think about this. She got killed by being shot a bunch of times. Mark doesn't use a gun. He punches giant holes. So if we're going to be real, Mark does win this. The real challenge for Mark during this, though, isn't whether he could win the actual fight or not. It's if he could win the mental battle. Lady D is smart. She could use that against Mark. Like Anissa fighting Mark, she was beating him to a pulp in more ways than one. She was destroying him in the physical battle and the mental battle. If Lady D just figures out to hit where she knows it hurts, she could win this maybe. Distract him and say like, oh, there's your mom. And he goes, wait, what? But the final question for this part, would Mark win? Probably. But he would have some very confusing feelings to deal with after. He would have to explain to Adam Eve why he was spending this much time with a tall vampire lady. That's gonna be a real interesting conversation. But like I said, Mark may have to deal with some mental battles in Resident Evil if he wants to win. And Evelyn might be the hardest one. And here comes Evelyn, the creepy little girl trope that just has not weaved its way out of media. Imagine if Wednesday Addams got mixed with a science experiment gone wrong. Yeah, basically that. Her powers, the best way to explain them is that kid on the playground that makes the rules in the game as it goes on. Yeah, that's literally the perfect way to explain it. It's like, oh, I'm a grandma. Oh, no, I'm actually a little kid now. Oh, and now you're flying away. Yep. Oh, and she can also move anything made out of mold around. I forgot about that part. But let's think about this first. Mark's fought aliens, he's fought monsters, and he's fought his own dad. While that might not sound that crazy, if you've watched the show, you know. Evelyn's whole thing is that she wants you to be part of her family, which Mark might crave during some desperate times, like when his dad leaves home for weird, awkward reasons. He probably just had a business trip. This is the same guy who gets sad after disappointing his mom. Now he's fighting a bioweapon that can basically weaponize his daddy issues. There are a few specific ways you can look at this. You can look at it that Mark will lose because Evelyn can be a little kid or an old woman. Those two things are pretty much off limits for Mark. He always fights a very crazy moral battle, especially after he's seen all that happened in Chicago or any of the cities that have been leveled, or anyone that's been hurt, or in between any of the chaos that he's been a part of. He always finds it really hard to actually want to fight against someone who has dealt with those problems. And then you could also look at it that Mark is going to destroy this threat because all it is it's trying to take over your mind with this mold, because let's be honest, the mold monsters aren't really going to be much for him. Mark went to Mars, and those things couldn't latch onto his head or infect him at all, so how would you expect that Evelyn's mold would do it? So, who would win? Mark would. But, like most times, and more than all the other times, he would walk away with the deepest, craziest trauma he's had to deal with yet. That might help and stack up well against the next enemy. Mother Miranda, also known as the PTA mom that has way too much time on her hands and learned how to shapeshift. Or what she actually is, a shapeshifting cult leader with a god complex. This lady's trying to resurrect her dead daughter through various acts of bioterrorism. Sweet lady, right? You would be surprised, but she's not. So let's really dive into what happens when you combine Eldritch Horror with Wine Mom. Okay, Mark's usual strategy of punching might not work as well this time, because unlike the other ones, this one doesn't just transform, it turns into completely different beings. Or at least that's what it seems like. Something very similar to this that happened to Mark was when he got pulled into the Darkwing dimension. This dude had no idea what was going on. This stuff was crazy. He was just in this complete tunnel where everything is manipulated by the person that controls it. Other than this time, the person can change and shapeshift. But wait, there's more. Miranda's not just content with shapeshifting, she's also got those mold powers. So while Mark's up there thinking, oh, I can punch through planets, Miranda's down there reorganizing reality like it's her Pinterest board. She's got enough wings to make herself look like an angel and enough tentacles to make a director in anime get an idea. The real kicker here is that Miranda's got the whole religious thing going on. She's got a cult backing her. So she's got those people on her side, they start cheering, they're like, oh, Invincible, you're wrong, you're stupid. He'll probably just get sad and walk away. And that's how he loses the fight. We've seen what happens in the show when a few people call him out. This dude cannot handle criticism. So with this fight, this is the first one that I can confidently say it is 50-50. Mark has to play his cards right, and Miranda has to play her cards right, and it could literally go either way, in my opinion. Plus, try explaining to Cecil why the mission report includes fought a shape-shifting mom who really needs to learn healthy coping mechanisms. But let's nosedive into the next one, Jack Baker. Jack Baker, the average Louisiana man. Oh my gosh, what is happening to him right now? Now he's the most aggressive tour for the Baker family estate, where everywhere you look just ends in violence. One bad thing for Mark here is he also has some parenting issues that might reflect here. You know you're in for a ride when someone can take a shovel to the face and treat it like a minor inconvenience. Jack's like that one relative that just won't leave the house party. Like seriously, he won't. He's like the first three, he just can keep transforming and keep coming back no matter what happens. The man treats death like a suggestion rather than a biological fact. While Mark's used to dealing with villains who have grand schemes for world domination, Jack's are a little more domestic.
Welcome to the family, son.
Mark might want his dad back, but I don't think this is a good alternative. This seems really abusive. That's his son, by the way. Here's where things get spicy for our blue and black suited friend, or blue and whatever color depending on which Mark you're talking about and which part of the show. Mark can punch through planets, sure, but when your opponent is similar to the thing that literally almost killed you, things get a little dicey. Going up against Jack is more than a physical battle, it's a mental battle as well. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. But when Mark gets past that and he's dealing with the physical battle now, Jack turns into what looks like a truck had a baby with a Dark Souls boss. Does that make sense to you? Look, I'll just show you. Yeah, now it does. This guy ain't going down easy. So, would Mark win this? I'm not sure. He has enough daddy issues as is, dealing with Omni-man. Now he's gotta fight this very aggressive father figure. This poor guy just can't catch a break with family members. For a little bit, let's move on to Resident Evil 4 and look at Mendes. Or as I like to call him, that one guy who definitely shouldn't be running a neighborhood watch program. Picture your local HOA president, but make him 8 feet tall and infected with a parasite that makes him very angry. Like I'm talking as friendly as a DMV employee on a Monday. Before we get into the fun stuff, let's talk about this absolute unit. He's built like someone in Photoshop just turns you into stretched res. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, and then decided to add like 300 pounds of muscle. Mendes might have the advantage of body horror that might catch Mark off for a second, but how long will that really get someone? I mean, he can separate his torso from his legs and turn all weird. Ugh, gross. But Mark has dealt with some pretty crazy, dangerous things. He destroyed one of the strongest beings with his forehead. I think he's got this in the bag. He turned somebody into body horror. I don't know if I can show this, but that. I'm pointing down at the ground like you guys can see in front of me. This thing. Mendes is like a customizable Lego character where the kid put too many bricks in the torso. But that's really not a huge problem for Mark. But let's not forget, similar to Mother Miranda, this guy's running a whole village. He could surround him, grab Mark. Well, Mark is like, get a knockdown because, you know, it's a superhero. He's got to have the thing where he like almost loses, but then he gets up and defeats him. During that time where he almost loses, he can pull an Omni-man, Mendes can, grab him by the head, and just push him into all these villagers and make him accidentally murder them all. That could get to his head, and he could actually win the fight, now that I think about that. Lastly, let's talk about the little guy, and I'm being serious, look at him. Ramon Salazar. Proof that 8-year-old kids are just as scary as they look. He's like Benjamin Button with a Napoleon complex. Oh, and Eldritch Horror. Standing at a very threatening 4 feet tall. Living proof that evil comes in a fun-sized package. Now, similar with other things, he might see Ramon and be like, he'll get reminded of his little brother, compare him to Oliver. He'll be like, oh, look at this poor troubled kid. He looks very different. Maybe he could resonate with him in that way. And then this thing turns into a crazy looking spider, and then he's like, oh, I have to kill you now? Again, playing on that mental battle card. This dude literally can't handle a fight if anything involving a kid joins in. And the real kicker, that this kid has a mouth on him. This dude could get under Mark's skin so quickly. Let's not forget when Salazar turns into the giant Lovecraftian monster behind me. And also, if Mark's fighting inside the castle, this might be difficult for him. If he's trapped in there. He can honestly just bust out, but let's hope he's being as dumb as he is in the show. Salazar can control everything around him. No matter where he goes in like a 10-mile radius, there's villagers that will be there to fight him. Not those villagers, not Minecraft. This dude's got the whole area on lockdown, which could pose minimal threat to Mark. But let's be honest, when you put one of the strongest beings in the world against an angry 8-year-old, who's gonna win? So now that we put Mark Grayson up against multiple Resident Evil monsters, we have decided that he would win. There might be some monsters on here that are harder than others, but in the end, Mark will come out victorious. But then there's some people that are a little more problematic, like Jack Baker and Evelyn, who could play on his mental battle, but then there's no one like Mother Miranda who could actually beat him. But if any of you disagree with me for any reason, you have the comment section below to argue with me. But do remember, in the grand scheme of things, folks, I agree. Mark or Invincible would win. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, do all those things. And if you like this one, you'll like this one on screen right now.